Everybody happy and got a seat? Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the meeting, and I've got a few bits and pieces to read out first. So bear with me, please. Actually, is my microphone working properly? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Right. Welcome everyone to the meeting. This meeting is taking place in the Council Chamber, Shepton Mallet, and we have members of the Planning Committee, officers, public speakers, and members of the public physically present in the chamber. We also have members of the public watching the meeting on Teams. Cameras within the council chamber allow us to film the meeting for viewers on Teams and also record the meeting. Therefore, any members of the public present should be aware they may be recorded even if they are not participating in the meeting. If this causes you any concern, then please let me know now. No, it seems okay. Members who have brought their own device with them. Yeah, okay. Members who have brought their own device with them should ensure their cameras are switched off, and very importantly, that their device microphone and speakers are muted for the duration of the meeting. Otherwise, this causes feedback on the council sound system. Public speakers contributing to the meeting virtually should switch their cameras off and put their microphones on mute until they are invited to speak by the chair. It is not permitted for any other member of the public viewing by Teams to contribute to the meeting at any time. Should any member of the planning committee wish to speak, please raise your hand and catch the attention of myself, the vice chair, the legal advisor or lead officers, which is Simon and Tom. And when members in the chamber speak, remember to switch on your desk microphone so that all those in attendance and viewing can hear you. Please do not use the chat function within Teams for anything. All contributions must be made verbally. And please can all mobile phones be set to silent. And I'll just add, which I like to add every week, is we treat everybody with respect, whether it's officers, members of the public, or councillors. Thank you. And we can move on. I think we're on to apologies, Helen.
Yes, thanks, Chair. So we've got apologies from Councillor Claire Sully and Councillor Philip Ham, Councillor Rob Reid and Councillor Alan Boyden, and Councillor Mike Rigby is subbing for Councillor Reid and Councillor Wyke is subbing for Councillor Boyden. So we have two subs today.
Right, thank you very much for that, Helen. Do we have any declarations of interest? Yep, fire away, Martin.
Apologies, yeah. Right, Chair, this is with reference to 2022-0212 REM. Page 103 of the public reports pack for this meeting refers to the 9 Square Trust in relation to the outline planning application for this site, 2019-2946 OTS. There is no indication in the papers that the 9 Square Trust does not also have an interest in the current application, 2022-0212 REM. Approval of planning application, the previous one, took place on the 1st of September 2023. I was not involved in any way with that determination. 3 of the current trustees of the 9 Square Trust are my distant relatives. All 3 are known to me as I am to them. One of the 3 is a fellow trustee on 3 charitable trusts. I have, however, no close personal connection with any of these 3 persons. I've neither received any approach in connection with this application nor any other matter from anyone connected to the 9 Square Trust. I also need to add that page 112 of this report names buildings in relatively close proximity to the application site as key buildings and unlisted buildings. Of these, I have a former close family connection with White Knights and the Grade 2 listed gazebo. I no longer have any connection with these buildings. For these reasons, I do not consider myself in any way determined with respect to planning application 2022-012 REM and intend to take part in the full debate and determination of this application as member of Somerset Council Planning East Committee. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Martin. I think there is something not quite right with our speakers, but I'm not sure what it is. So I know it's not just mine, Helen. It was Martin's as well. I think there's something that isn't right. No, that's okay.
I brought you another one to use.
Right. It's
You
okay
swap
then.
it over.
Yeah, this one's going at the moment. It's just something I noticed. I could pick it up where it would go from low to low. Right. Okay. So what are we on to next? We've done apologies. We haven't done the minutes. So we've got to do the minutes. Hold on a second. That should be working. Ah. Okay. Right. Okay. So everybody ready? We start at page 13.
There's two sets of minutes to.
There are, yeah.
Okay, so do you want to start with the 3rd
Okay.
of December meeting?
This is the 3rd of December. Okay. Right. So let's go. Page 13. Page 14. Yes, Helen?
Oh, so we're actually looking at Selwyn Garden now, are we? All right. Okay. Got a general statement to make about it then. Okay, so
No problem.
yeah, thank you. Sorry, I was pressing the wrong thing. So I have sent out 3 emails to officers and also to all members, including subs, making suggested amendments. This morning I spent £10 getting them printed out so that you could see them in front of you. And I'm now told that these amendments cannot be taken at the meeting. And I just wonder if the legal officer can explain again why that is, because particularly the resolution at the end, I listened, Claire Sully, who was the proposer, said it twice. In my email trail, I put down the timings so that anybody, if they wished, could check it. And she said all this twice. Now, what the officers said in the meeting was that they thought it would be better to just have 1 or 2 main reasons for refusing the application. But we didn't actually make a definite refusal then. We were minded to refuse. And what the officers have done is they've put the main point in, which was affecting the character of the local area or something like that. But they haven't put in all the other things that Claire Sully read out. So I wanted to make 2 sets of amendments. One was that resolution at the end, which is the most important thing. And the second one was a whole load of other amendments, and I wanted to take them en bloc. I'm now told that that cannot be done today. And what I did ask when we had the draft amendment, when we had the draft of the minutes, which was at the January meeting, I think, I did ask, will the draft minutes have been sent to the inspector that's going to who's going to manage the call-in for this site? And I was told, no, they wouldn't. They would have to be okayed by this meeting, and then those amended minutes that we all agreed would then go to the inspector. So that's why I've spent hours and hours and hours going through the meeting, putting the amendments together, printing this out. And now I'm told today, and also I've got a cold. I've come to this meeting. I could have had a sub. I've come to this meeting specifically for this. right? And I'm now told that we can't agree my amendments or talk about them at this meeting. So can I have an explanation, please, from officers? Well, first of all, why we can't, but secondly, why didn't nobody tell me? Why didn't nobody tell me not to waste my time?
Okay, Helen, we can see that you're quite upset. But Paula, our legal officer, well, this will be the first that she's taken notice of that, or it's come to her attention. I think maybe Paula can give you a rough overview, and maybe Dawn or Tom or Simon may wish to say something else. So, Paula, you go first.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, obviously I wasn't at the meeting, and yeah, it puts me in a difficult position. I was informed that the legal advisor, who was present at the meeting, had gone through the draft minutes and had made amendments and put more information into the draft because it wasn't substantial enough. Obviously, Councillor Kay's made proposals, and you can't. Obviously, she can make those proposals, and the committee can agree those proposals. But the problem here is, I'm unsure whether the legal advisor that was here previously has seen those proposals. And in terms of the resolution, again, I'm speaking, I wasn't here, I didn't hear it, but usually the resolution shouldn't be changed. Usually what the resolution says is what you voted on. So I feel it probably wouldn't be a sound decision to agree all the amendments that Councillor Kay's been putting forward without officers having the chance to ensure that was the correct case. And I'm not saying she's got it wrong, but just that we need to be sure of what else is being added to the minutes. I thought I only skimmed down through, and I know she's highlighted them. There were a couple of things that I wasn't sure should be in there. It looked like there was a question being asked. I don't know whether that was what was said verbatim or whether that was something that she'd put in there. So I just think they needs to be reviewed, perhaps again with your proposals being reviewed, and not with comments come back if anything needed to be taken out, because obviously you are, as councillors, you can make those proposals if that's a reflection of what happened at the meeting.
No, thank you. Yeah, any second, I'm just going to check with any officers if they wish to say any or add anything to what Paul has said. No, there's no dire thing. Okay.
Well, in that case, I'd like to propose that we either reject these minutes and we do it at the next meeting, yet again at the next meeting, given that then officers can then look at the amendments that I've made. I don't know why they didn't already, because as I say, I have copied in Tom, Simon and Gwilym, perhaps not Martin to all of them. Perhaps that was the point. I should have copied in Martin, but I thought I copied in Martin to the first set of amendments that I sent. And then I also had a couple of other councillors that came back to me saying, no, I didn't say that, or you've missed out this or whatever. So I then sent out a slightly changed, updated version. So I'd like to propose, therefore, that we don't accept these minutes at this meeting.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be fair. Oh, Edric wishes to come in, and I think Susie as
Thank
well.
you. I think, just a quick comment. I think we need to approve these minutes because we need some minutes to go before the officer hearing the appeal. And if we haven't got any minutes, then we haven't got a case to go. And we wouldn't want the appeal to start without having our approved minutes before them.
Yeah, Simon. Hold on, Simon's going to come in.
Just to add on to what the Vice Chair said, obviously, as a committee, you haven't yet made a decision and you're no longer entitled to make a decision on the application because it's been called in. But what you will have to do is that you will have to confirm the council's case to be presented to the call-in inquiry, and you will be asked to do that through a report that will be presented to you at your meeting on April the 1st or possibly the week before. And the resolution that you will be asked to confirm will be the case that you wish to present to the call-in inquiry. So it won't be why you would refuse the application. It would be the case that you will be presenting. So I think that the Vice Chair is right. There is a process and an order of things to happen before you can make that decision. But the draft minutes that have been circulated were drafted to reflect the debate and discussion that you had at the meeting. And I think what's key is the resolution. So if the resolution reflects the resolution of the committee, that's what needs to be qualified. Whilst the actual listed number of points that were debated and discussed, I don't think you need to be 100% satisfied that the list that are in the minutes captures all those points, because effectively you will be making a recommendation on what the council's case is to be presented to the call-in inquiry, which may or may not include some of those issues that were debated and discussed when you considered the application, when you considered the case as a planning application.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Helen, you wanted to come back. Dawn, sorry.
I think Councillor Kay's point is it has weight in terms of if there is uncertainty that the minutes reflect the outcome of that meeting and changes were in the process of being discussed. If they haven't been fully discussed and agreed or ruled out, and the reason why they've been ruled out communicated back, if they are being ruled out, then I don't think it's a true reflection of the minutes of the meeting. So I would support, encourage members to support Councillor Kay's action in that the minutes aren't signed off, because you do need to know that they are a true reflection of the debate that happened. I haven't seen Councillor Kay's comments, but I'm more than happy to have a look at them with the legal officer and then come back to her at the next time we have a committee gathering and sort of go through the minutes and go through the differences and explain what is and what isn't being accepted on the minutes and why. Because I think there's uncertainty and it doesn't build trust between members and officers, and I think we need that. So I would support members to support the Kay's recommendation.
Okay, Helen, you can come back first because you've got the vital reply sort of thing.
Yeah, well, my hand up was next.
Yeah.
So I think from what Simon said, I understand that the council needs to come to a position, and it may well be that my position changes when we come to a position. It may well be that I am minded to approve because of certain improvements to the plan. However, I have an open mind. And right now, I just want to make sure that the minutes reflect what actually happened at the meeting. And I think what Simon is saying is that position that we take when we decide at the 1st of April meeting, I believe, that will supersede probably anything that's in these minutes. It will, but nevertheless, as Edric pointed out, these need to go to the inspector. Actually, I think the date that they go, that everything goes, is not till the 3rd or 4th of April. So we don't actually have to send these now. But whatever is online, the inspector may be looking at it already. So that's sort of why I just want to get these sorted out as soon as we can. Now, I also have another suggestion, which is that I have asked Gwilym and others if we can have another meeting, possibly next week, in advance of the 17th of March briefing about the call-in inquiry, because it's at the 17th of March meeting appears to be quite sort of structured sorry, I really apologise to all the people in the audience here today about this, but it's something that's been rumbling on for a while. They've come today. Sorry about this. But the 17th of March meeting is structured such that the officers are going to probably present the reasons why, the position that they think we should take, and then we'll be debating it and agreeing or not. And then we'll have another paper that will come to the 1st of April planning meeting, where we will actually rubber stamp it. I'm just wondering, we used to do this at Mendip. We used to sometimes have emergency planning meetings, whether we need to have an emergency planning meeting next week, get in all the people who were at the December meeting, approve these minutes, and also get some sort of more discursive outline, understanding of what is happening with this call-in process and what we're going to be asked to do. And because otherwise on the 17th of March, yeah, we're going to be, it's not going to be sufficient time for us to have a discussion. So that is another possible way forward, to have a separate planning meeting to agree these minutes. Otherwise, we'll have to do it on the 1st of April, as Dawn has mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. I don't think Dawn wants to come back right at this moment. Susie, you had your hand up?
I mean, basically, I guess I'm now just going to be echoing other stuff that's been said by a variety of different people, but ultimately...
Can't hear you.
Oh, I don't know why you can't hear me. Am I not using my normal loud voice? So really, I'm probably now just going to be saying a variety of things that other people around the table have already said. But ultimately, too much time has now passed between the minutes that the meeting that these minutes appertain to and today. Ultimately, they need to be an accurate representation of what happened. We do have a recording, so it's not beyond the wit of man, and definitely not beyond the wit of men and women in this room. If Simon says it's time sensitive, I trust it's time sensitive. So either we need to listen to the recording here and now and sort it out here and now, or we need to have another meeting, like Helen said, and get it sorted out ASAP. It's just rumbling on. It's going on for too long. It's unnecessary. We don't need to change reality. All we need to do is listen to the recording, write down what happened. It's really straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Dawn, you'd like to come back in a minute?
Thank you. Just in terms of trying to move this on, can I suggest that maybe we have a look at the minutes for the other items discussed on that day, agree whether we're happy with those items, accepting, did we not have one more after? Is there not second minutes on the minute?
There's 2 lots of minutes here, isn't there?
Yeah, but there's anything else on that day.
There was nothing else on it. They all got deferred, did they? That's fine. Okay, if that's the only point, then I suggest that we move, because we've been discussing this for half an hour, that we'll take it offline and go through Councillor Kaye's comments with legal and come back to everyone properly. On the 1st or potentially the 28th, if we can move it forward. But it'll be ahead of the deadline we need it to be for pins.
Okay, I'll take 2 more now and then we'll go offline for a half an hour. Ros, you were...
No, sorry, excuse me, Barry was first. Barry's been waiting for
Oh,
ages.
sorry, Barry, you've been waiting apparently.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with Councillor Kaye. I don't think this is something to be left for another day. I think this is quite important that the planning inspector does not get the wrong idea of what the planning committee decided on the day. He is now, at the moment, he could potentially begin 2 sets of circumstances relating to that meeting. And if he chooses to take the first one, which is the incorrect minutes, he will not say, well, you sent me the minutes. I don't want to see any more. You're making them up as you go along. I think it should be sorted out, not here and now, obviously, but pretty quick.
Okay, Barry, we're going to go to Ros now.
Thank you. I think 2 things. One is, yes, we need to have an accurate record. I also think it would be helpful to have that go through the legal officer who was in attendance at the time. And I think until he's seen the amendments, I think that's an unreasonable request. And thirdly, if we're going to have a briefing on the 17th, then hopefully we will have these minutes sorted out prior to that briefing because it will help inform it. So I would like to propose that we ask Dawn to take the minutes away with the amendments proposed by Councillor Kay, discuss it with the legal officer who was in attendance at the time, and have a pre-meet of the planning committee, one item agenda prior to the 17th from the briefing, so we make the briefing meaningful by then. And that will clear up the issue, and we can just close this down now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ros. Dawn, Helen, does that sound sensible?
Sorry, I was distracted. Did you say that you proposed that we agreed these on the 17th of March? And will that need to be a formal meeting?
I propose that these minutes and your amendments go forward in front of the legal officer who was in attendance, that the resolution of those minutes then come to a formal meeting of the planning committee before the briefing on the 17th, probably at an hour or half an hour beforehand, and we then formally agree them then. That will get rid of the time urgency issue, get rid of the officer issue and legal input. And otherwise, the 17th becomes a meaningless briefing. Thank you.
So that means we have to have the briefing in person on the 17th in order to actually vote it through. Is that correct? Do we need to have the meeting in person on the 17th to vote it through?
Thank you. Paula's got her finger over the microphone, so we'll let Paula come in.
It would have to be that the minutes have to be agreed at the planning area meeting like we are today. So I don't know the logistics of getting together special meetings, and it would be highly probably irregular to have a special meeting just to agree the minutes of a meeting. Officers can try and be ready if you are having a briefing on the 17th, so that you could, it won't be going forwards to the inspector then, but you could informally indicate that everybody's happy with them, so that on the 1st it is signed off properly, but you can't do it outside of the planning meeting.
Thank you, Paula. I think Simon was one to come in, or Tom. I'm not sure which one. Yes.
Yeah, I think Paul has answered the question really. I think there might have been some slight confusion, members, about purpose of the meeting on the 17th. So the meeting on the 17th will be a briefing for you of the matters left with this application in advance of you then formally establishing the decision you're going to take, the meeting on the 1st of April or the week before. So as Paula said, it wouldn't be appropriate for the meeting event on the 17th to be the time when you agree the minutes, but we could use that meeting as an opportunity to have agreed what minutes you do think reflect the resolution and the debate that took place at that meeting.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Susie, you had your hand up first.
Why can't we just sort this out now instead of putting it off? I just feel like the further forward we go, the more kind of messy this is getting and looking. I just think we need to bottom this out and get it done and draw a line under it.
Go for it, Dawn.
Thank you. I haven't seen Councillor Kay's comments. I wasn't in attendance in some of the meetings. The legal officer who was there for the meetings isn't in this meeting. So in terms of giving it a fair reflection and giving true and accurate feedback to Councillor Kay in terms of what can be accepted in the minutes, what can't be accepted in the minutes and why, I think we need the time to take it offline to go through with legal. So apologies, but I need to go through the minutes and the changes. I can go through the recording, but because I wasn't present, I wouldn't be happy agreeing something on the hoof without the legal officer who was present for the meeting.
Thank you, Paula. I understand what you're saying. Susie?
I kind of understand, but I feel like we're making this more complicated. We're making it more complicated than it needs to be. It isn't something that's opinion based. This is fact based. We should just be able to, if necessary, go offline now, listen to the recording. It'll take a few minutes, make the changes and just do it and get it done.
I think the difficulty is the reason we can't, and I would fully endorse Councillor Kay's initial recommendation of not signing off the minutes, is effectively at the moment we have two differing sets. We've got the set that's been checked by legal, that's been published as part of the agenda that's before members. We've then got an amended version that Councillor Helen Kay has circulated to the majority of you, some of the officers, not all of the officers, and we have to align the two. That's not something we can do in 3 minutes ahead of a committee meeting when we've got other items that need debate and decisions by members. So it is something that needs work, because I wouldn't be happy with you signing off minutes unless everyone was satisfied it was a true reflection of the debate and the committee and the outcome. But we cannot do it in 3 minutes at the start of a committee meeting.
I'm not suggesting we do it in 3 minutes. I'm suggesting we just do it and get it done.
Yeah, well, I don't think
We will.
We'll do something different. Helen?
Just a matter of principle is that why on earth are we expected to approve minutes at all if we cannot make amendments, and if everything has, I mean, it's just a general point, and if everything has to always go back to legal to be checked, or, you know, someone has to run through the meeting again in case any of us make things up, and when we try and do changes to the minutes. So I just don't understand the general principle about why we can't do amendments here and now. I mean, I understand you've told me, but it seems like a process that is a bit pointless, that's all. Anyways, I think we should just move forward now. I've suggested that we refuse these minutes. It's going to have to be, they're going to have to come back yet again on the 1st of April, and then we agree them then. Yeah.
Dawn, do you have anything to say? No? Okay. Ros, you're next.
Apologies. I made a proposal. I think I have a seconder, and I would like to take that if we may. And I'll repeat what I am saying is I will ask for the proposed amendments. I'll take them through legal. This is a really important set of minutes. It's being called in by the Secretary of State. And we've got to get this right. And I think it would look totally inappropriate to do it haphazardly or just quickly now. And therefore, I am proposing that we take the minutes away with Councillor Kay's amendments. We'll ask the officers to come back and give us any comments, questions or statement, and we'll have that ready. And if it can't be done formally with a formal committee prior to the 17th, which would be the obvious thing, if I've taken Simon's guidance about the briefing, then I think at least we should have by the 17th a very clear understanding of what is in the minutes, what's been amended, what has been rejected and why. And then we can then have the briefing and we can then formally agree them on the 1st of April, unfortunate day. And we will then have the papers ready to go to the inspector. We must get this right. I do not want to have Mendip or Planning East taken forward like this. It's totally inappropriate. And we just need to I have a seconder, I believe, in Martin. So, Chair, can we take that, please, and move on?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And so do we need to do a vote on this one? I think we do, don't we? So all those in favour of Ros's resolution or thing? Yep. So is that unanimous? Okay, thank you. So that was unanimous. So we're not going to do these minutes today, and we will move on. Okay. Second set. Yeah, I've got to find them.
Don't you stop.
What page are they? Does anybody know? Here we are. No, that's it. Right, okay. Which page is it we need? 13. Yeah, that's page. Hold on. That's the one. Yeah.
That's the 3rd of December. Again.
23.
No, that's the 3rd of December.
No, so it's the next one. We said page 13, didn't we? Okay. A little bit different. I prefer it when it was paper. Okay. Off we go. Right, this one is start on page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. Yes, Helen?
Sorry, at the top of page 16, next to speak was a representative of Frome Town Council. That was the planning officer, Jane Llewellyn. And she commended the planning officer on comprehensive report, advised that Frome Town Council had declared a financial emergency. No, she said that they had declared a climate and ecological emergency. And the reason that's important is because she went on to say that she acknowledged battery storage would provide renewable energy. So there was a lot of sympathy for renewable energy. It's just that well, we refused it in the end, but she wouldn't have bothered to say anything about a financial emergency. In fact, Frome Town Council are quite well off compared with Somerset Council. It's a climate and ecological emergency, please. Can I have that amendment? And I hope that legal don't have to be involved to check all that, and we can't improve them with just 3 words.
I think I'm not going to go there. Okay, I'm sure we can do that. Yeah.
It's a matter of fact, so
yeah,
quite happy.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Helen. Right, so we're on page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, page 21, and that's that. And we need proposal.
I'll propose it, but I'd like to make a comment. Councillor Kay, please can you stick to the facts? When you make a statement about the minutes, I don't think there's a need to make what could be seen as a snidey comment about minute taking. My wife takes minutes at meetings, and saying about needing to go to the legal officer could be seen as a slight on the minute taker. I think that's unfair. So please, could you stick to the facts, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. And you're proposing? Who's seconding? I'm looking for a seconder here. Oh, yeah, Henry Robbins. Okay, all those in favour of accepting those minutes? Anybody against?
With the amendment, yeah.
Abstain. Yeah, and abstain for Mr. Rigby, Councillor Rigby, Mike. Okay, thank you. So we've got those through. Okay, so we're going to now move on again. I'm just going to go back to my agenda. Ah, dear, nothing works.
Mr. Rigby, like to comment?
Yes, Mike.
Thank you. Just before we move on, I'd just like to say that Councillor Clark suggested to me that we rename these minutes the hours, and I'm quite taken with that suggestion.
Right, okay, so we're moving on. I think our next one is we're going to actually get into the real business, I think, now, aren't we? Okay, so we go to public question time, which we haven't got any. So we've got a planning application in Shering Road, Shepton Mallet, which I believe is Carlton. Oh, Tom, you wish to speak first, don't you?
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, for both these applications, see REM, they're reserved matters. Just a reminder to help with discussion and questions. It's not a matter of conceding the principle, it's how the development's achieved. I know you know this already, I'm just reiterating it to help with discussion. So the matters of principle, drainage, ecology, archaeology, density, been agreed at outline stage, and we're now looking at how the development's achieved. So scale, layout, appearance, access, landscaping and details, but the officers will flag up what the key points are. So I hope that's helpful for discussion.
Thank you, Tom. And I'm hoping that the microphones are going to remain reasonably stable, because it's a bit unfortunate for the people who are online if sometimes you can't hear properly. Carlton, you would like to fire away? Okay, mate.
Thank you, Chairman. Hope everyone can hear me. My microphone's working. This is an application for reserve matters, as Gravitas has just explained. So, it's an application within the Tadley Acres estate, just up the road from here. So, it's for all matters were reserved on the outline. So, matters of access, appearance, landscaping, layout, and the scale of the development. I'll just give you a quick brief history on the site. The land in question was originally formed part of an earlier outline application back in 2005, when the greater Tadley Acres estate was given outline planning permission for a mixed-use development with all sorts of retail, employment, etc. The site was actually designated as an employment site within the wider mixed development scheme, but no takers came forward for a number of years who wanted to put any employment on the site, and an outline application back in 2019 was submitted for its use for residential for up to 7 dwellings, and outline planning permission was approved by the council in 2019. An application was subsequently submitted, this application before you now, for the reserve matters, so what the actual application, what the scheme would look like, etc. But unfortunately, in that period, we had the situation with phosphates coming into the fore, and falling within the catchment. We had to wait quite a while before the applicant managed to come forward with an appropriate scheme to combat phosphates on the site, which he has now done. So we'll just walk through the development there. So as you can see, this is the application site. Currently, it forms like a piece of open grassland adjacent to the 2 other open areas that you can see there. It's essentially one big open area to the south there that's got a little pedestrian footpath through it. It's an open green space for the enjoyment of the people at Tadley Acres. Over the last nearly 20 years now, the application site has also been enjoyed by the residents of Tadley Acres for various activities, but unfortunately, it has always been a designated site for development. This comprises the site just south of Whittingham Close and adjacent to Shering Road, sort of corner plot there. So the applicant hopes to put in 7 dwellings on the site and to arrange them in a courtyard appearance, which takes its design influences from the rest of the Duchy Tadley Acres site. You'll see in photographs later on, you'll see the much of the estate is made up of small courtyard areas surrounding usually a car park in the centre, and the applicant has followed suit in this respect. So it's for 7 units. There'll be 5 3-bedroom and 2 4-bedroom. Gives you an indication of what the properties look like and their plans. So Generally speaking, in terms of the scale and appearance, the applicant takes the design influences from the properties around, predominantly rendered elevations with brick coins around the windows, etc. And that mimics very much the properties across the road in Whitting Close, adding a slightly more contemporary feel to the general appearance of the building, though, to reflect when it was built rather than back 20 years ago. If I move on, so this property here reflects plots 1 and 2. This is plot 3, which is a corner plot. And again here, the top left here, that reflects plots 4 and 5. And then we got plot 6 here and 7. So you got rendered elevations, brick coins around the windows, cottage style windows under a slate type roof, similar to other properties within the area. Cross section of the site gives you an indication of the scale of the development in relation to existing properties on the other side of the road. So there we go, we've got existing properties here and similar site scale. This is looking from the west of the site, and you can see the larger 3-bedroom properties at Charing Road. And then you've got these properties here on Whitting Close, which are stepped and staggered leading up the road, and they're all of a similar scale. Right, these are sort of 3D artistic impressions of the scheme, just to give you a flavour of what the development might look like on the site, and it also gives you an impression of what it looks like in the context of the existing properties that surround the site. And the top left is an aerial photograph of the site. This is the site here. There's no trees on it. There's a tree adjacent to the site, but no trees are affected. And again, adjacent to the site here, and there's some fencing that fences off the site from this sort of formal open space area here. So you've got 3-story properties along here existing, and you've got the 2-story properties along here. So all the properties on the site will follow the 2-story arrangement over there. So there's some photographs. So this is Whitting Lane. You can see the 2-story properties there, and then you'll have 2 stories in here, and again and here. This is from the other side of the site, and this is from the west, looking at the side, Whitting, the properties along Whitting Close. So the application is recommended for conditional approval. The application would be read in conjunction with the conditions already attached to the outline planning permission, which there are a number of conditions, including foul drainage, surface water drainage, a traffic impact assessment for when construction takes place, all sorts of conditions that will still require discharge. The only one that has been discharged to date is the archaeology conditions. So they've done a trial on the site, and there's no archaeology that will be impacted by the development. So that now has been discharged. So there'll be all the conditions on the outline permission, plus the ones that I've recommended in my report here. And we're recommending that the permission should proceed as proposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carlton, and a very good report. Okay, next we move on to public speakers, and the first one is Mr. David Maxwell, please. You have 3 minutes, David. Okay. Are you okay with putting the microphone on? Right, thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon and thank you for your time today. I live on Sharing Road directly opposite the planned build, of which we will have a detrimental impact not only to me, but to my surrounding neighbours and the potential new residents of these new dwellings. Sharing Road is already a heavily congested area of Tadley Acres, of which additional dwellings exacerbate the problem. Currently, emergency service vehicles and waste collection lorries already struggle to pass through this estate, mounting the curbs or not coming through altogether at certain times. Increased traffic will compound an already dangerous and potentially life-threatening problem to our Tadley community. Parking is already much needed, where the block of flats on Sharing Road opposite this potential build repeatedly raising the problems on this part of the estate. Already we can count up to 20 cars at this block of flats already trying to get parked in the evenings. The multi-year build itself will cause monumental and stressful problems. Residents won't be able to access properties throughout the day and the noise pollution will be damaging to us and our animals. The proposal will lead to light restriction, increased overlooking and loss of privacy in the local area. The loss of green space will impact not only the biodiversity and plentiful wildlife that resides there, but also the residents, the local children who safely play there, the dogs who enjoy walking there. The build should not be approved without any additional road being built from Littlebrooks Lane, improving access to the site and alleviating any build-up of traffic for construction and future residents. No house build should commence until the road has been approved and built. This should be a final and absolute point for all planning commitments going forward. Whilst I understand the need for more housing and commerce income, we should not support poorly placed drainings that strain existing resident services and negatively impact quality of life. To compromise, a maximum of 2 dwellings or 3 dwellings at a max would be suffice enough for this area, with an additional road access point from Littlebrooks Lane. Although I challenge and welcome the committee to weigh up the benefits of building on an unpractical space for improving housing and commercial benefits, when a 620 new house built has already been approved within the area of Shipton Mallet. I thank you for your time.
And thank you very much, David. Cheers. Next, we have Richard Thomas, who is the chair of the Shepton Mallet Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group.
I don't think Mr. Thomas has arrived, actually, Chair, and he doesn't appear to be online. So I think we'll have to go on without him.
Oh, that's a bit unfortunate. Okay, we'll go without Mr. Thomas. So we're going to go straight to the committee now. So who on the committee would like to speak first? Rick.
Thank you. I appreciate this has outline approval. My concern is mainly based around the parking in the area, because we all know that garages don't get used for cars, they get used for bicycles, gym equipment, fridge freezers, etc. And I think you've walked around most estates, very few people put cars in garages. One of the main reasons being modern cars are too big to go in the average modern garage. So I would either like to see garages not built and more hard standing left for people to park their cars off road, or looking at the size of the plots, the small garden is actually made big enough for people to use them. I think that's something Barry's commented on in the past. I can see him nodding. Those are my first comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Edric. Who'd like to speak next? Helen.
Thank you. I don't think, although I hear what the person said speaking, thank you. I don't know that we can refuse this on traffic grounds because we've already got outline permissions. So as far as I understand it, I'm sorry, but that is the case. I'm inclined to agree with Edric, though. If you've already got people parking on the pavement, it's going to make the problem worse. I want to just be clear that about the remaining green space, is that going to be protected? Because it does seem a shame to be taking this green space away from local residents. If it's already got outline, there's not a lot we can do about it, but I just wonder if the rest of it can be protected. And then there were some other technical questions. First of all, there's no biodiversity net gain. It says on paragraph 8.17, the application was submitted prior to biodiversity net gain regulations coming into force, and therefore no provision of BNG is required. I'm just wondering how these things get applied, because when we talk about an NPPF being upgraded from government, suddenly everything that's even on the table and being considered has to comply with the new NPPF. So I'm just wondering why the same doesn't apply to biodiversity net gain, and the, you know, if new things come into force, that even if it's planning application that's in train, why doesn't that have to apply? And then I've got one other condition that I was going to ask if it does go forward, is that there's no solar, there's no real attempt to build anything above and beyond the standard building regulations. There's no sort of fabric first approach or anything like that to improve insulation. So I just wondered if we can put a condition in asking at least for solar panels, or for, I think that's the very minimum, to sort of try to improve the energy efficiency of the buildings. So that's 3 questions. First of all, is the remaining space going to be still available, and why can't we apply biodiversity net gain when we can apply NPPF upgrades? And lastly, can we have a condition? Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Carlton?
Do you want me to come back on that?
Yeah, I think you can come back on that one.
Thank you. I'll come back on your point as well, Edric. Obviously, we can't penalise the applicant for any shortfalls in parking provision that have already been approved on other developments by the council, or how people choose to use their garages in not parking cars. And I think there are conditions attached to the original permissions that those garages should be retained for the parking of vehicles. So it's a matter of, you know, individuals to come to the council and say that Mr. Bloggs isn't using his garage appropriately, and we can investigate, obviously. With regard to the green space, that is a formal green space that was originally approved as part of the scheme. It is quite well protected by virtue of the planning permission, and I believe the Section 106 agreements on the original site as well. The legislation, I can fully appreciate your frustration in some government documents insisting that we jump to attention with every slightest change in legislation, but then there's some degree of leniency with regard to other parts of the legislation. And within the BNG legislation itself, they do set out certain exemptions to introduce this policy to the planning system. And one of those exemptions, there are a whole raft of exemptions, and one of those exemptions is if you've submitted your application prior to the legislation coming into force, then you're not bound by it. But if this application should be refused for some reason, and it didn't go to appeal, and somebody set a new planning application on the site, then we would be able to consider BNG afresh.
What about the condition? Is it possible to put that in?
I'll take guidance from you. We can put some sort of condition with regard to the build quality of the property in terms of sustainability. Yeah, I'm sure we can muster up something on that front. I'll check the outline permission as well, just make sure there's not already a condition with that respect.
Okay, thank you, Carlton, and thank you, Helen. Next, we go to Martinell.
Thank you, Chair. Just I was going to add to Helen's list. Heat source pumps, electric charging points, could they be thrown in as well as the solar panels with the conditions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I can't. Yeah, Ros, you're the next one. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair. This is an existing housing estate, and the design and the appearance seems to be appropriate for it, and most of the conditions I think are fine. There are a couple maybe which could be added, and I would support the one about sustainable. I couldn't find, and maybe it's my fault, but one, there was no reference to bin storage, and many good new housing estates do have bin storage, and this is critical. And also bike storage. Now, on this occasion, the properties do have more than one entrance, not through the house. You can get to the back gardens from the layout, and therefore it's probably less relevant. But I do think we should consider that. The third thing is, and again, forgive me if I've missed it, but there is no real reference. Thank you. I may have missed it, but there's no real reference to active travel. And active travel is really important to the community of Shepton and the town council. They have put huge amounts of effort into what the path which goes through this very estate and is a benefit to Tadley Acres. And I would have thought, I know it's only 7 houses, but I think there should be a contribution from those houses, as we don't have SIL, towards a really critical part of the cycle path network. And Shepton has got developments in other parts of the town which will link to the path which services Tadley Acres. And I would have liked to have seen some reference to it in the application. But I may be wrong, maybe it's there and I've missed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Carson, do you want to come back?
So the last point, Councillor Oswald made with regard to that, any contributions we require from the applicant need to be agreed at outline stage. Like again, this is a reserve matters application. We're looking at the points in hand. We're not looking at getting any contributions towards education or anything else at this point. That if that was a requirement of the council, we should have asked for that at outline stage.
Okay, thank you, Carson. Do you want to come back, Ros?
Thank you. Bin storage.
So there's ample space within the gardens of each individual property for bin storage. I think the bin storage thing gets carried a little bit too far on planning applications. It's really there for developments that don't have access to the highway or flatted developments, that sort of thing, where bin storage is vitally important, not individual houses.
Thank you. I think it's going to work at the moment. Okay, we're going back to Edric.
Regarding the size of property and garages and gardens, etc., as this was in a formal open space, or is currently in a formal open space used by the neighbourhood, it says reserve matters for up to 7 houses. So I propose 6 and allow everybody to have slightly more space on their gardens. So I'm actually going to propose an amendment. I would accept this and propose we accept it for 6 houses, not 7, and give the houses we're building slightly more space. Carl's going to tell me, no, he can't do it. On the basis of, because it says for up to 7 reserve matters, it's already agreed.
No, the outline was for up to 7.
Okay, so there's nothing I can do now.
No.
I'll shut up then.
I like that.
We can only determine what's in front of us at the time. Thank you.
Right, lovely. Who's next?
Barry wants to speak.
Dawn. No, Barry. Sorry, Barry, I couldn't see you over there.
He says I'm a lady. I'm just curious about the, there was a reference to high archaeological interest, and then I noticed that previous applications were for controlled excavations. You did mention that there was an archaeological, it's been cleared for archaeological issues, but I just feel a bit uncomfortable when it was referred to as a high archaeological interest, and it just feels like it wasn't mentioned again in the rest of the application.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point actually, because we have Roman stuff not far away from there, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very, very rich area of archaeology, and there's some really great treasures have been brought up through the development of the Tadley Acres site. Now, on the outline planning permission, it was required by the county archaeologists that we put a condition on with regard to having a trench dig on the site, just to have an indication of what might be there. And that report, that condition was imposed on the outline planning permission, and the applicant has since done an archaeology report and done the dig and presented that information to the council and we have discharged that condition. So the county archaeologist is quite happy that everything is fine with respect to protecting archaeology. However, it still comes to the point that when you're digging on the site and anything that does come up, then obviously that's reported to the archaeologist.
Well, just to come back on that, I was just going to ask, if something does come up when they build, what is the procedure then if they suddenly uncover something?
Like
What
I
would
just
they,
said,
they'll
you
just,
know,
they'll just have to report it
they
or-
have to report it and somebody will come down and yeah.
and investigate before they
Yeah.
continue.
So the applicant's got their own archaeologist on board who's done the reports for them. So they'd be very interested in coming down and having a look.
Yeah, I'm just thinking on lines of the City of London. I know it's really different, but I mean, there they stop and they, you know, it's like they found something, they cannot continue. So I was just curious if that would be the same, but they obviously report it and then make a decision. Yeah,
There is a requirement, yeah.
okay, lovely, thank you.
Right, thank you, Carlton. And Dawn, I hope that's put your mind at ease a little bit over the archaeological stuff. Yep, good. That's important. Okay, Barry, you can come in with yours now.
I want to follow up on Edric's point about having less houses. If we can't have less houses, we can't have bigger gardens, but we can actually stop them building conservatories and sheds and all that stuff all over it. I mentioned it to Ed yesterday in connection with when we spoke about the Cura. Can we withdraw permitted development rights so that they cannot cover the gardens with stuff?
Carlton.
That's a good point, and we've already thought about that. And if you look at the outline planning permission, there are 2 conditions on there restricting them from building any further extensions to the properties, or curtilage buildings. Okay, without first getting our permission.
Hang on, yeah, thanks, Carlton. You haven't got a garden shed then, Barry. Okay, Edric.
I think we've got by the point where I'm going to propose we accept this recommendation along with Carlton's recommendation. So I'm looking for a seconder. I think we've debated this enough and we can't get any further.
I would second it with the extra conditions, please, about more sustainable buildings.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a minimum of solar panels. I'd love it if it was air source heat pumps and everything, but I think that might be asking too much of them. Solar panels are not so expensive.
Okay, so who's seconding? Are you second? Or I thought Rose's hand was up as the seconder, to be honest. It's up to you. Oh, I'm Martin now. Okay. Okay, so we've got a seconder. Anyway, that's what counts, really. Does anybody else want to have a last say before Dawn?
It's just a matter of process. In terms of if we're putting additional conditions on, can members confirm that it's delegated approval to the officers, subject to confirming the wording of those conditions with the chair and vice chair? So effectively, we will circulate whatever the draft of that condition is to the chair and vice chair to get sign off. Once they're happy, we'll issue it as a delegated decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
We're happy. Martin.
Chair, sorry.
Oh, Carlton, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'd need to liaise with regard to the things that we can do with regard to improving building techniques and whatever, and because there are strict covenants on the site set by the Duchy for certain things that can and can't happen on the site. So we need to understand that. So get an idea of what we can get from the agent, and then we can put it in a condition.
Okay, thanks, Carlton. You had an explanation. Okay, so we all seem to be. Martin, Neil, did you have your hand up? No.
No.
Okay.
Just seconded it. That's
good. Okay. Right, let's go for it. All those in favour? Okay. Any against? None. And any abstentions? Any abstentions? None. So that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to. Yes, this is our one now, isn't it? In street. So we're moving on to the one at 20.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Sorry for the members of the public, but it may be advisable for a break at this point for 10 minutes, because this is not going to be a short one, and it's the last one on the list. So.
Okay, Martin, it's a bit early, but yeah, we'll have a 10-minute break.
We've got
Okay.
half an hour speakers.
Yeah, 10-minute break. So back by 25 past. Okay. Okay, everyone, let's take our seats and get ready for some more action. Okay. We just got to wait for Helen a second. That's nothing unusual. Where are we? Now, are we settled in nicely now, Helen, do you think? Okay, brilliant. Right, let's get started then. We can't hang around. So, Ed, over to you.
Chair, good afternoon, members. This is outline application, land at Somerton Road Street. Reserved matters application. So the matters reserved relate to appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. So outline approval 2019-29-46 OTS, already secured consent for up to 280 dwellings, and the main vehicular access was also consented at that time. The location plan is on the screen. The site is just to the south of Street, and there's the same on Google Maps. A public right-of-way runs across the site, as you can see there. This is an extract from the local plan policies map. Members will note that the application site is an allocated site under policy ST1 of the local plan for a minimum of 280 dwellings. The site is within the settlement boundary of Street, this, as shown by the red line there. Other aspects of relevance to this site, the overlay conservation area outlined in purple is to the west of the site, as is an open area of local significance, the sort of northwest. There's some employment land a bit further off and some other recreation spaces protected by DP16 of less relevance, to be honest. So the conditions on the site, the high point is down in the south. The low point is in the northeastern corner. So just to give you an idea of elevations on screen. So in these sort of with the little maps, this is screenshots from a phone OS Maps app. So from the sort of corner, this is the highest point here. That's about 131 feet. These are all in feet. I don't know why. And then sort of going down a bit further, 124 feet over here. And across the kind of middle of the site. So this point here should be over here, about 105 foot. These are all above height above sea level, obviously. Going down a bit down here to 94 foot. And then the lower parts of the site, so sort of 85 foot in this bottom corner here, 89 foot. And then off-site, you've got Burley Gardens showing about 93 foot. And then Petvin Close is shown at 91 foot. So that compares, so the lower part of the site in that corner is slightly lower, 85 foot, than the sort of off-site conditions. This is the proposed site plan. So main access in the consented main access in the northeast eastern corner, Somerton Road along the eastern side. Stallgrove Lane runs around the bottom of the site before it turns into Burley Lane along the west. This is an overview of the drainage plan. I appreciate there's a lot of detail there, and that is very difficult for you to read as is, but in broad terms, the surface water drainage will be flowing down the site, through the blue surface water drainage that's shown here. There's also a large suds feature across the top of the site there. So water is going to be travelling broadly west to east before sort of exiting in the northeastern corner. We do have the LLFA online if there are any questions about drainage issues. So I've just added as well there a sort of more detailed drainage plan of the northeastern corner of the site, being as it is the low point and where obviously the water sort of flow through the site and leave the site. The design of the site, it's obviously quite a large site, 280 dwellings. It's been divided up into various character areas. So the sort of dark green colour are mews type buildings. These are slightly lower in ridge height than the other buildings across the site, and they have been located around the sort of northern part of the site to help reduce the impact of the site on the existing neighbourhood to the north. There's a bit more mews also around in this area. The lighter green have been characterised as a sort of wetland edge, and this will come through a bit more in the building types that I'll present a bit later. Key buildings are highlighted in with a sort of purple outline, and these are throughout the site. We've got a park edge character and a primary route character. So these are all the house types that are used to sort of reflect this character are all sort of slightly different from each other. And the existing hedgerows throughout the site have been retained to sort of structure the green infrastructure through the site. So you get additional kind of public open space around those existing hedgerow areas. The suds feature also has sort of followed existing features of the site being as it is through the sort of low part of the site or lower, flatter part of the site. So affordable housing types. So we've got 8 different building types for the affordable units. So the numbers sort of breakdown are shown on that table there. The Milsom, which I'll show you as one of the house types, is got the most features most commonly, and there's 84 affordable housing units total. And then the open market types, 14 different types. And again, you'll see on the slides of the elevations that each one there's variations. So the materials, one might be recon stone, and then you'll have, a couple of Ashtons, one with recon stone, say, and another with brick, for example. So the site features both apartment blocks and normal housing. This slide shows a couple of the apartment blocks. Block 1 at the top there as you come in from the main entrance. So the main entrance just off the slide there to the northeast, and another apartment block 2 is there. So this slide shows the elevations of apartment block 1 and the floor plan there. So these apartments are dual aspect. That's apartment block 2, which is an open market block. Again, the flats sort of cross both sides of the building. And sort of down in the southeastern corner, we have apartment block 3, another affordable block of flats, and that's an elevation. Floor plans, so again, they are across the building, so windows both sides. And another apartment block in the northwestern part of the site, affordables. There's some elevations of that one. This is a Muse building, and there are some examples, both open market and affordables, of these. So this one is the Milsom. So materials are sort of generally brick, a mixture of grey and buff brick. And this one is, so going back to those character areas, this is the type that will be found in the primary route. This is an affordable housing unit. And then there's a variation there. So that's the one you'd find in the park edge, which is sort of more brick with red Roman tiles as opposed to the grey tiles on the previous version. And there's a feature one. So going back to the character area plan that I referenced before, the purple outlined buildings, you know, this would be located in one of those positions. So that one's got sort of weatherboarding, black weatherboarding with some brick down the bottom. And this is the Muse type building. So again, just to show you the differences in ridge heights. So the other 3 are all 8.9 meters ridge height, and then the Muse buildings are dropped down to 8.2 ridge height. So that's the sort of height you would find between the sort of northern end of the site. And just a floor plan for the Milsom. So this is another Muse type building, Kensington, again, an affordable unit. And I'll just sort of go through these to show the variety of house types that are found throughout the site. This was largely brick. So just to point out as well, so this is the Western Burt, and again, you've got 4 different variations on this one. This is one of the more common house types found within the development. Some red brick. Okay, so again, just to sort of show that distribution of the mix of materials, this plan shows in the pink units with red double Roman roof tiles. That's the sort of infill colour, and then ones that have grey double Roman roof tiles. Again, the sort of light grey infill, and then the different walling materials shown with kind of the outlines. So this is just the northern part of the site. So there is quite a mix of materials. I suppose the predominant materials are grey or buff brick. There's red brick in there, and then there's reconstituted stone to sort of match local material types as well on certain properties. So building heights, the 1.5 story or Muse type buildings are shown in the northern part, and again to the west, next to this sort of area of orchards and allotments and public open space. And then the predominant building height is 2 story, and the apartment block as you enter the site is 3 story. This plan shows the distribution of affordable housing through the site. So social rent in light blue and shared ownership in light green. And this plan shows the boundary treatments, just a sample here in the kind of northwestern corner. So broadly, sort of within the less visible areas, back gardens, it's timber close boarded fencing, and then in more visible areas, sides, we've got walling. So in this case, grey and buff brick, 1.8 meters along there, and then some sort of reconstituted stone in other kind of more prominent areas. So again, a mix of materials to the boundaries. So just moving on to green infrastructure. This plan shows the main wetland and suds feature through the middle of the site. This also includes a timber boardwalk, which is shown in the red. And in the southern part, there's public open space around the existing hedgerows through the middle. The grey area here is a sort of play area. This area is orchard, small allotments in here, more orchard. That's just to show the location of the allotments. More zoomed in on one of the play areas next to the suds feature. The orchards again. And then there are some sort of informal play areas as well within the public open space. So these are kind of like boulders and beams to walk on, that kind of stuff. There's also a mound within the suds feature. So you can sort of walk up here, and there's some visuals of this later on. But the idea behind this is that you can stand up there and have a view of Glastonbury Tor from the lower part of the site. You can see Glastonbury Tor from higher up in the site anyway. But yeah, this will allow you to do that from further down. Just a plan of the highways adoption. So most of the site is planned to be adopted as public highway. The difference in colours there are the darker areas would be sort of block paving. It's just the southern part. And then the phasing, so phase one, so it basically goes around clockwise. So first phase would be up here, phase 1A, phase 1B, and around, as I say, clockwise. So yeah, some renders, some visuals to show you now of what it would look like. So as I say, a sort of mix of buff and grey brick. So that's the wetland suds area, and you can see the mound there that you sort of walk up and get a view of Glastonbury Tor. So just to summarise the consultation responses we've had for this application, so Street Parish Council is objecting. We have concerns over traffic and congestion, impact on residential amenity and flood drainage issues. And then the other consultees, no significant objections. So the Highway Authority, so there is the recognition that would need to be some tweaks for those roads to actually be adopted by the Highway Authority. There are some sort of other minor issues. The tree officer highlights concerns over an existing proposed oak tree close to an existing protected ash tree. Yeah. There's a summary of the public comments that we've had. So again, concerns about flooding, flood risk, water runoff, sewer capacity, traffic on Somerton Road, parking, some objections over the closure to Burley Lane. So I should have mentioned that actually. I'll come back to that in a second. So overlooking privacy, strain on local services, and loss of green space and wildlife habitats. Yeah, so the reference to Burley Lane is, this was secured at outline. So I'll just go backwards. So there is planned to be a closure of Burley Lane to all traffic, except for, you know, cycling and whatnot, to make this as a more accessible route to non-vehicular modes. So that's already been secured through the outline consent. Just get back to where it was. Yeah, so so I've got a couple of things to say about conditions actually. So there's already quite a wide suite of conditions, 30 conditions already secured through the outline consent. They're all listed in the officer report. I can go through those if there's any queries about those. The outline also secured a number of planning obligations, so that's all already secured as well. Some further conditions are proposed, obviously the standard plans list, materials, that kind of thing, and then some additional conditions requested from the Council's ecologist in relation to bats, vegetation, hedgerows and badger surveys. In addition to those conditions, as I mentioned, there are already conditions secured through the outline consent. Some of those existing conditions cover drainage, but just officers are aware that members have some concerns about in respect to drainage. So we are suggesting an additional condition in relation to surface water drainage to sort of tie the existing condition 23 up a bit more strongly. So that would just relate to the implementation of condition 23. And obviously this would be for members to choose if they are minded to approve the application to include these conditions as well. That's for members. And this one would be to basically make sure that the surface water drainage condition is implemented pre-commencement with the exception of highway works. So the applicant would be able to do the highway works. They would then need to fully implement the surface water drainage scheme before continuing the rest of the development. In a similar vein, sustainability matters have already been conditioned through the outline with the addition of a sustainability strategy statement, which has been submitted as part of this reserve matters application already. Again, just to sort of be belt and braces, we are suggesting some additional standalone conditions in relation to solar panels, air source heat pumps, and water efficiency. But again, those are suggested additional conditions that members would need to make clear that they wanted, if they are minded to approve this application, to include in addition. Yeah, and then that's the end of the presentation. Just to sort of recap, so this site already has planning permission for up to 280 dwellings. It is an allocated site for a minimum of 280 dwellings. So the principle of this site has already been decided, and that also included the main access. So matters for your consideration today relate to appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Ed, for very thorough going through there. So we're going to move on now to the public, people who wish to speak from the public. And the first one will be Mr. Kevin Davis, please. And Kevin, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I have 4 concerns I'd like the committee to take into consideration before planning permission is granted. My first concern relates actually to the traffic restrictions to Burley Lane. They're due to come into force before the properties are occupied. I believe this is too late and the traffic restrictions should be applied earlier than this, as soon as the access to the site from the Somerton Road is made available. Committee members won't know the road, but Burley Lanes are one vehicle thoroughfare where there's insufficient room to create a pavement. As well as pedestrians and cyclists, the lane is already used several times a day by a local preschool who walk 2, 3 and 4-year-old children from their nursery to a local arboretum. These children, as well as the public, are going to be placed at increased risk from the additional traffic created as the site is developed. There's already concern about this, and I think the lane should be closed to vehicles as soon as possible rather than waiting until the houses are ready to be occupied. My second concern is with respect to the 5th existing planning obligation about the educational monies. I think the committee should make it clear that this should be ring-fenced for the use in street and it's not lost within the wider finances of the county council, and that the council should make public how it proposes to use this money when the plans are drawn up. My third concern is related to the issues raised by the public in response to the original application about the infrastructure. As was said, there's going to be a strain on existing services and the lack of additional community facilities or amenities on the site itself. These concerns have not been addressed at all. One possible solution is to replace 8 to 10 properties in the middle of the site with a community centre. It could be used as space for facilities such as a creche, adult education classes, a meeting place for older people, and potentially be developed as an outreach centre for the local GP practice and social care services, which are already under pressure and will need to, with the additional demand arising from the occupants of the new properties. The loss in the number of properties will be extremely marginal in terms of the additional benefits received. Finally, section 33 on page 79 of your papers states that the development has been assessed to ensure compliance with the right to privacy under the Human Rights Act. Section 21 of the papers sets out the changes that are made to the plans to protect the privacy of most of the existing neighbouring properties, and I welcome these. However, my own property is the individual one most affected, because it has 2 boundaries onto the site, and no acceptable amendments have been put forward to offset the impact on my privacy. I myself have set out what I consider to be reasonable and proportionate compromises, both in my response on the County Council's website and in letters to the developers, but these have not been incorporated within the plans. I therefore do not think the plans comply with my rights under the Act and challenge them on this basis.
And thank you very much, Kevin. Cheers. And you were banging the 3 minutes as well, I think. Okay, the next person is Mr. Aldo Rayner, please. Thank you, Aldo. And you have 3 minutes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time today. Again, seeing all the plans that was set out before us, but I'm still not convinced that the plans and the layout submitted is keeping in the existing residential properties that are there on the site as we speak. I live in Burley Gardens, and we've all got red brick properties there, and you know your plans are great, but the fact of the matter is they do nothing for the keeping of the houses that are there already for us. We don't know if they're side-on views, garden to garden. We've got no idea at all. The other thing I'd like to mention is the fact that funding has been agreed for an independent survey to be done by Street Parish Council, and we still don't know when that independent flood survey is going to be done. So how can planning be permitted and granted if this survey hasn't been done independent of what Cura have told everybody here around the table? So again, that needs to be addressed. Funding has been given or been granted by Street Parish Council. We still have no idea when this is going to take place, and this has to be done. The last time a survey was done on this site was back in 2018. Anybody will tell you that in 2018 we had one of the warmest summers since 1976. So how can that be right? The other thing I want to say is that we understand, my colleagues and I understand that there's a phosphates credits issue that hasn't been achieved by Glastonbury Sewerage, which was supposed to be offset by the Somerton Road development. So with this still being outstanding, how can this be not under consideration? And again, there is mitigation on wildlife, but again, we don't see anything valid and impactful on how it's going to affect rare plants, rare birds, badgers and everything else that goes with it. And also going back to the flooding issue, there is an issue with a development going on in South Dorset and at Bridport concerning the fact that they've built 180 houses on this plot of land, and they gave no consideration to flooding. And our issue is that going to happen to us in Burley Gardens and Burley Lane and in Petvin? Thank you very much indeed.
And thank you, Aldo. That's very good. And you were within your 3 minutes. Well done. The next person is Mr. Gavin Jones, please. And Gavin, you have 3 minutes also.
About groundwater, I don't think it's been fully dealt with to date, and which we're just getting on the portal today, hopefully, our independent hydrologist. So this is Reserve Matters planning meeting with a flood risk agenda item. Why is this 6 years after Curo? Because 6 years after Curo have had what should be a basic procedure for a large development halfway up a hill on shallow impermeable rock, groundwater monitoring, which has not been done. It's in place now, and we're almost through 4 season cycle of the groundwater monitoring, which needs to inform the drainage strategy. Curo have shown calculations that suit the 2 litres a second per hectare, but it only serves surface water. After LFFA having queried groundwater, which Curo dismiss any such impact of. On the 14th of January in Crispin Hall, Curo put forward their engineer, who started with 2 things. There's no real groundwater flow to speak of, and then explained that the ponds are designed to resist groundwater flow and filter it away. I put on the portal photos that the emergence of 100 metres of rippling stream that appears just south of WSO6, the nearest monitor to the northeast basin. This is forced groundwater flow that appears at the lower surface of the basin. The gentleman earlier described the falls, the elevation is 13 metres of elevations across and long falls across this site to one conspiring northeast basin. The 5-page highways letter appeared on the portal last Thursday with no objection conditional on a multitude of items to be satisfied, includes numerous references to groundwater. Street Parishes today publishing on the portal confirmation of the appointment of the parish-funded independent hydrologist consultant to address the specific groundwater impact of the development to the site. A first time that groundwater will be properly appraised, and which must complete before any further progress. Separately, it's also concerned that the foul water system and its gravity-fed design to the northeast basin with a 20-cube hold tank, I've worked out that's half the volume of my lounge. The Burley Lane foul water connection, which everything will be pumped up to, can only take 40% of what 280 houses will produce, and this results in a 60% increase on the existing system, which is extreme. In the weather events, we know December 23, no pumping will be happening as nowhere to go. But when the average person uses 147 litres a day, this site is limited to 111, 73%. Either of those values are 5 or 6 times the tank volume, giving the impression pumping will be pretty constant. Yes, the 400 metres of pump pipe will hold another 20 cube, but in a storm event, what we have, a Thames style release. Just very quick, the 5-page highways letter also refers to surface water runoff from the new entrance needs to go on a separate section 106 adoption with the sewage department. Is this new news? Why is so much still at 6? How many years it's been going? Why is everything still so unfinished and Friday afternoon? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Gavin, and you were bang on time. Okay, next we have Mr. John King, please. And John, you have 3 minutes also.
Thank you. The first comment I'd like to make is about the presentation, really. And I'm going to talk just over about the culvert that runs through the site, which I haven't seen any documentation on that today. and it's extremely important to this site. I've got concerns over the retained culverts and potential future flooding. You didn't see the culvert today, it wasn't shown. The development has retained culverts starting from Stallgrove Lane, named Overley Brook, turning due north, bisecting proposed ponds, area A and B. And A and B go into the culvert, not as shown today, going out of the site. This is then discharged into a non-maintained Portway stream behind Burley Gardens, Clements Road, Petford, and finally discharging across Somerton Road. The culvert from Stallgrove is buried in the centre of an existing edge retained for the site, which follows the complete length before discharging into the Portway stream. I cannot see any detailed plans, method statements, design criteria, or long-term maintenance plans on the Mendip portal, or more importantly, how Curo will access this. This culvert is being retained to drain catchment pond 1 and 2. I have grave concerns about the non-maintained portal stream being overloaded in flood conditions. We had an incident in December 23 when the Portway stream was totally overloaded, causing flooded gardens in Petvin, including effluent waste, flooded gardens in properties 178, 180 Somerton Road, flooded garden number 7, Portway Crescent. Millfield School had extensive damage to their properties, and I'm sure they'll have a big uplift in their insurance premiums and excess because of this. My last concern is the proposed pump effluent storage tank positioned in flood zone 3, northeast of the site. What happens if this area floods and overwhelms the storage vessel? Raw effluent will spill out into Somerton Road and discharge into adjacent property gardens and the Portway stream. I'm asking the council to defer the development of the site until clear details of all issues are addressed. Thank you.
And thank you, John. Our next speaker is Mr. Michael Linham, please. Michael, you have 3 minutes or so.
Thank you. This application is more a work in progress than a plan that can be approved. There are numerous concerns, including the safety of residents. The whole site is shown in the related cases folder as having a high level of radon, according to the Health Protection Agency. A local resident who lives close to the site died recently of lung cancer despite never having smoked. Gov.uk website states that exposure to radon, a radioactive gas, gives an increased risk of lung cancer. Radon.org shows the whole area being built on is affected. Indeed, many years ago, all residents of Street were offered test kits to measure radon levels, and some houses subsequently modified. The council should ensure all building designs reduce this risk to the lowest level possible. Building Regs Part C1 bracket 2 states reasonable precautions to be taken to avoid danger to health and safety caused by contaminants, including radon gas, on or in the ground to be covered by a building or any land associated with the building. There is no mention within the plan submitted of this being observed. The road design is very disjointed, affecting drivers, delivery services and waste collection efficiency. It will not be helped when roads become single width due to on-street parking, typical of many areas of street. Bird habitat measures are to be welcomed, but will need annual maintenance work to ensure disease control. Who will do this? It's not specified. It is also certain that the building process will scare away most birds seen on site, which include at least 3 red and 4 amber listed species. The outdated ecological reviews ignore slow worms, which I have certainly seen in my garden within 3 metres of the northern boundary. These are a protected species under the Wildlife and Countryside Act and should be evaluated. House designs do not blend with the true nature of the street, as shown by Crispin Hall or Wilfrid Road. Blue lias is the traditional building material, and there's none of this in the square, modern designs which are totally lacking in character and not a pleasant vista as visitors entering street from the Somerton road direction will see. Finally, various measurement plans related to the site's operation and safety do not seem to be available. This may be normal, but it's clear this plan is not fully thought through and should not be approved until everything is in place. Then it can be returned to this committee to allow them to publicly scrutinise exactly what has happened rather than change them behind closed doors. I hope you concur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. And okay, we're moving on to some other members now. So we're going to come to Councillor Liz Lyshan, who is a divisional member and is online, I believe.
I am, Chair. Thank you very much. My apologies for not being in the room this afternoon. Too many meetings at Somerset Council.
Yeah, you have 3 minutes, okay?
Thank you very much. Chair, when this came forward for outline planning, my concerns were mostly about safe travel to school and college and to the High Street and Street. And so I welcome the stopping up of Burley Lane. And I actually can support the residents' view that that work should be done before the houses are occupied and before the rest of the work is completed. I was concerned about the Section 106 for education, so the scale of the Section 106, but I understood completely, and I still do, the need for housing in street, particularly for homes at social rent. Since that outline planning was granted, we have had flooding over the winters in street of winter of 23-24 and again 24-25, where I saw flooding here that I've never seen in my entire life living in this area. We've also seen school numbers reduce, and so although there are more planning applications in street, with another 3 coming forward recently, I'm concerned about the fairness of the Section 106 and how that money is spent across different ages and across the schools for the whole of street, not just one part of street. There has been even greater call for housing, particularly social rent, and so I welcome the involvement of Curo as the developer, having come from a social rent background. I'm particularly concerned about the buffer zone between the existing housing to the north of the site and how that is managed. That seems to be a particular concern on so many new estates, that a management company is appointed but doesn't necessarily do the work that's expected of them. And because some of the houses on the northern site appear to have turned by 90 degrees, I think that buffer zone is ever more important, and therefore its maintenance is ever more important. So, Chair, I do support more housing in street because I know how many people, particularly young people, are looking for housing that they can afford to buy or to rent. I support safe travel to school and college and into the high street, of course we do. And I ask members of this committee, if you can, to look carefully at the Section 106 to ensure that it is equitable and fair across all of street. I thank you, Chair, for your time in allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Cheers. Okay, next. I'm going to read out a statement from Liz's fellow councillor at Street, Councillor Simon Carswell. So bear with me, it's only a short statement, so I will read it now. Right. Okay, so this is from Councillor Simon Carswell Street. I cannot attend the planning meeting on the 4th of March. However, I would be grateful. Yeah, that's okay for me to read this out for him. Although I am generally in favour of this development, I wish to echo the grave concerns raised by residents and the parish council with regard to the flood risk. I live not far from the proposed development and often walk through the development area. It is waterlogged in places for 3 quarters of the year. Wow. Especially at the lower end adjoining the existing residential estate. It is essential that robust measures take place to allay the residents' fears and ensure that a major flooding event doesn't occur in the future. And that's it. Kind regards, Councillor Simon Carswell. Thank you. And next we move on to Mr. Peter Roberts from Curo, who I believe is here. Thank you, Peter. You have 3 minutes also. Sorry.
Thank you and good afternoon. The application before you today will deliver a carefully considered, sustainable, well-designed development that will make a positive contribution to Street. The principle of development for the site has already been established and the design of the access, including consideration of traffic generation, has also been approved. The development will deliver much needed new homes for the area and help the council in meeting its housing requirement. Of the 280 homes proposed, 30% will be affordable homes. In addition, if permission is forthcoming today, we plan to deliver an additional an extra 11 affordable homes using grant funding from Homes England. Our aspiration is to create a high quality development focused around a wetland feature with boardwalk crossing over it, with retained trees and hedgerows creating a network of green infrastructure within the scheme. The active travel measures approved through the outline consent, which include downgrading Burley Lane to a pedestrian cycle route, will be delivered alongside a network of attractive pedestrian routes on site. We recognise that residents have raised concerns in respect of the scheme's impact on localised flooding, and we acknowledge that these concerns are justified and have been based on recent experience. Over the last 14 months, we've worked closely with the local lead flood authority in order to address their comments as well as concerns expressed by residents to ensure that the scheme doesn't cause flooding. We've undertaken hydraulic modelling to identify the current flooding issues faced by residents and model our development to make sure that we won't make this worse. We've undertaken groundwater monitoring, which has demonstrated that the ground is impermeable and that there is no significant body of groundwater that the development would displace. This confirms that it is surface water and not groundwater which is the cause of existing local flooding issues. And we have significantly increased the amount of attenuation provided within the proposal and reduced the rate at which water is discharged from the site by 40%. Combined, these measures demonstrate that the site will not flood and there will be no increase in off-site flooding. Indeed, there might be some reduction. No buildings are proposed in Flood Zone 3 and the pump station falls outside of this. We've taken measures to minimise the impact of the development on residents to the north. We've introduced a planted buffer between the existing and proposed properties of about 7 metres. New properties have been reduced in height to 1.5 stories high with minimal windows on the rear. And on average, there is about 30 metres back to back between proposed and existing homes. We're proposing high levels of sustainability with air source heat pumps and solar panels and EV chargers. The scheme will achieve over 10% biodiversity net gain and includes a range of green spaces, including orchards, allotments and a substantial wetland. Curo will retain the affordable housing within the scheme, meaning we will have a long-term interest in the development and play a key role in ensuring the successful management and maintenance of the open space in perpetuity. We truly believe that the development will create a high quality, sustainable development and hope that you will agree with your officer's recommendation and support our application today. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Cheers. Well, within your 3 minutes, I think. Okay, so we move down to nitty-gritty. Who's going to be the first member to speak? Looking around. Oh, Helen, you wish to be first. Okay.
Did wait a few seconds, but no one put their hands up. Okay, so it seems to me that the main concern, I'll just have one go and then I'd like another bite of the cherry later, but the main concern seems to be around flooding and the fact that this goes from sort of south, the contours go from south to north. And then, as far as I understand it, this stream that we haven't heard about, it does say it in the officer report, it does say there's a stream along the northern edge of the site. So presumably that's along the edge where it's on the outside edge of the site, along the back gardens of the existing residents. It seems to me that that's probably the lowest point, and that that when these gardens, when there is a lot of rain and these gardens get boggy, it sounds as if that's because the water's coming down from the town side and from the field side towards that area. So I am a bit concerned about cart before the horse. I welcome this extra condition that you put up, Ed, where you suggested that no building be done until we have got a proper plan. But I'm also wondering why we can't. I mean, I'm starting to move towards an idea of deferral, which a few of the members of the speakers have said, because it seems as if Street Parish Council now has some money for an independent hydrologist to come in and look at what they say is groundwater. Now, we've heard from Cura that it's not groundwater. I know a little bit about geology. I suspect it is not groundwater either, because if it's clay, there won't be that much groundwater. However, if they've got an independent hydrologist that knows what they're doing, they can come in and do that. So I'm starting to move already towards deferral on the grounds that we haven't got enough information. I mean, I understand what Cura is saying about how they've spent 14 months and the goalposts have changed a few times. They've moved from 40 to 45% adaptation for climate change. They're putting in extra capacity underground. I appreciate all of that, but it just feels like we haven't quite got everything in place yet. And there was a couple of other things that were raised by the speakers, like somebody who said that he lives on the edge with two boundaries against the site and that he doesn't really appreciate the landscaping that's been done, and a couple of other things like whether or not the Section 106, it needs to be looked at again with the educational money. I know we don't agree that at this meeting, that gets deferred afterwards, but I just feel there's quite a lot of things that don't seem to be in place yet, particularly around what we know about the way the site drains and the flooding. So I'd like to come back later, but that's my initial thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Ed?
Thank you, Chair. We've got the LFA online, so I think they can pick up the drainage and flooding questions. But I just want to point out as well, Chair, that an education question has also been raised. So education contributions were secured through the Section 106 at the outline on a per dwelling basis, about £7,000 per dwelling from memory, total about 1.98 million. We've got Francis Gully from the Education Authority online until about 4:30. So if we want to go to Francis first, perhaps we could do that if Francis is ready to pick anything up on the education side. I think she's coming on now.
Yes, please, Francis, if you could come now, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. There were lots of statements on the education obligation, but I wasn't sure if anyone had actually a particular question about it.
I think
Helen, you do, I believe.
I was just listening to what Liz had said. I haven't read the detail. It's just that when Councillor Lation was on, she said that she wasn't sure about it herself, and I don't know if you picked up what she said, but I got the impression, well, one of the speakers also said, is it going to be ring fenced for street, or is it going to go into a general pot? That's the only thing that I remember being said. But I think that Liz said that the numbers had gone down. I think the numbers have gone down.
Okay, so I can explain what the clause says currently, and as Ed explained, the obligations are set in the outline application. So the funding that is secured for education has been carefully worded in the clauses in the Section 106 to be able to be spent by the Education Authority on any or all education types, which would be also directly related to the application. It is true that the numbers in the schools have dropped, so they therefore look at the current time to have some capacity, but obviously a housing application of 280 dwellings does generate a lot of children, and that will be generated over a long period of time. So although the obligation was set and we were drafting it in 2023, the careful consideration of the wording in the clause does allow us as Education Authority to be flexible for the pressures and needs in the future, which this planning application we still believe will have an impact on the schools in street. And slightly wider, yes, I do remember, was it Kevin, the member of the public, sorry, I can't remember your surname, did suggest that it should be spent within street. So if it was spent on early years or primary education need, it would be in street. The catchment secondary school is in Wells, and if it was to be spent on special education needs, that may well be slightly outside street, but it would still be directly related to the number of children that are generated from this application. I hope that makes it clear. So in general, the Education Authority still believe that the education obligation is correct and it will be used in the future. Also, as in most Section 106s, there is a later clause in the document that suggests if the money is not spent within a certain time frame, it will be handed back or not invoiced in the first place. So it is always still compliant in that it is truly necessary, directly related to the development, and reasonable and fair in all respects.
Whoops, thank you for that. Now I'm gonna check with three people here who've got questions. Susie, Martin, and Ros. Are they all related to education?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay, Susie, you're the next.
Sorry, I was really going to say probably what Helen had said, but I'm slightly concerned, well, not concerned, but I feel there was a clue there. So my understanding is we're not allowed to ring fence money for any specific town. And the Blues School is in dire need of, I feel that there was a bit of a clue given to us there when she said, you know, children from street can go to school in Wells. So I'm guessing the answer is the money won't be ring fenced for street, but I'd like that to actually, I'd like to know definitively, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Would you like me to go through the other speakers first and then come back to you for overview? Or are you happy to answer them one at a time?
I could answer that one quickly. There is a risk that I'll forget one as we go on. So the money can be spent as it is stated in the wording of the clause in the Section 106. So it does not specifically state that it has to be spent within street. And so therefore it leaves the Education Authority some flexibility on spending it where the need is at the time.
Right, thank you for that one. Next person is Ros.
Thank you. My question is this purely early? I understood it to be only early ages and primary and not secondary. And if it is secondary, you have both the Crispin in street, you have obviously the Wells School, and also the other thing I would like to ask is that we have Strode College, which does provide sixth form as well, and would they be eligible for support too?
Yes, it's all possible. It's the Education Authority will have they have the knowledge on what is needed at the time, and of course the need won't arrive until the houses are built, sold and occupied. So, but as it is worded in the clause, it is flexible enough to be used at any school that has a relationship to the development.
Okay, thank you for that one. Martin, you have the next question.
My question I think has been answered, but it was in terms of why Wells blue was mentioned when the local school is Crispin. Or
Oh, yeah,
St
sorry,
Dunstan.
that's probably my mistake, but as it is written, it could be spent anywhere particularly, but it's most likely to be spent on the local schools to the development. So if Crispin is that, then that is the correct one.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I would put a case in for St Dunstan's as well. Okay, Helen, did you want to come back? I thought I saw your hand.
Not on education. I want an answer on.
Okay, we'll come back to you in a minute on
local
that. On
lead flood
education.
authorities on.
Yeah, we'll come back to you on that. Is there anybody else who'd like to ask any questions on education? No? Okay, we can let you go. Cheers. Thank you. Right, now we go back to general questions. Who's the first? Helen?
It was my main question was about flooding. Actually, it was a minor question about education, but I'm glad we've got it out of the way. So my main question was about the flooding and that I welcome, if this goes through, I welcome the extra condition that Ed has drafted, that there will be no building on site except for roads, access roads, until we have got a proper drainage plan, which is sequenced and shows how it's going to work. But I still feel that if the parish council has concern and that they've got this money for the to do an independent have an independent hydrologist to have a look at it, then I'm just wondering, you know, it is, well, the local lead authority, flood authority can tell us, but, you know, whether it's worth deferring it on those grounds. There are some other things that we could defer it on as well, which I'll come back to later. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Ed, would you like to reply?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do have the lead local flood authority online to answer those questions specifically. I would add that obviously this is reserved matters, and you know flooding was also considered at the outline stage. But yeah, I think I'll just defer to the LLFA. So Amy, if I think the question was specifically about the ditch along the northern boundary. You had some concerns with Councillor Kay, but perhaps Amy, if you could also talk about the work that the LLFA has been doing with the applicant as part of this planning application.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. You are there. Brilliant.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry. Would you like me to go?
Yes, please.
Yeah, well, we've been reviewing the surface water drainage strategy for the site, and along with that, we've been reviewing. So we've looked over the model, the outputs are provided for a model report for the surface water flood risk through the site. I mean, from what we've been provided, the development is reducing the discharge rates down to 2 litres per second per hectare, which is being attenuated within the surface water drainage scheme. It's then being so that's being controlled and then released to the receiving system, which is the watercourse to the north. I do know there's some comments on the watercourse that's along the northern boundary, and that would mainly fall down to riparian ownership. So if there's concerns over blockages, it'll have to be checked who's the riparian owner there, and look into what needs to be done if there needs to be clearance of that. Is there anything further? We've been looking at the surface water, the groundwater concerns, which I think has been clarified by a consultant that the applicant has provided. And it's kind of been explained to us in terms of it's more to do with where surface water is ponding on the site due to the impermeable nature of the ground. And then the basins have been designed to have a layer which should disperse any water which may be within the soils around the basins, which is pretty much as per what we can find in guidance.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask if there's any questions from anyone at the moment on this particular subject. Helen.
Yeah, just coming back on that, since we've got, is it Amy online?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, Wessex Water comment, I'm seeing on page 52, said there must be no surface water connections to the FOW network. I just want to be assured that it's not going to go into any CSOs. It's not, and also you've just made me think and wonder. You say that it will discharge into the general environment and go into the main sewage system. Well, often that is then linked to the CSO. So that those combined sewer overflows can create further downstream problems with sewage going into rivers. So I just want to know who's going to be responsible for this. Is it going to be the management company that takes over and is responsible for this drainage system once the houses are occupied, and the occupants will pay a small fee to make sure that it actually works? And you had a question mark about who is the riparian owner of culvert, as if we don't know. It's really important that we find out if that's in private ownership, who actually owns that, so that all these things are all stitched together really before this planning application goes ahead. I mean, I'm not sure if this is a cart before the horse thing. It's like, I've been in this situation before where we give planning permission subject and getting a drainage scheme in place. For me, it feels like we should have the drainage scheme in place first, but I do know that I've been in this situation before, and that sometimes you give permission first. But all of those things must be addressed, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Amy, if you can answer those questions as best you can, that would be appreciated.
So there shouldn't be any connection to the foul drainage network. So where the culvert is, that then goes out to a section of open watercourse, which then is culverted, and then it goes out again to a watercourse. So we should be seeing this go to a watercourse downstream rather than, say, a sewerage network. So it will need to be, if there is concerns over the riparian ownership, and if there's concerns over blockages, which I do know was raised, I mean, that can be looked at in terms of, Neil, maybe you can help me with that, with maintenance responsibilities, because I know that we do a lot of that on our other side.
So who is the maintenance?
Okay, thank you, Amy. I think Susie has a question for you as well.
No.
Oh, you haven't finished yet, have you? No, Rod.
There's some answers.
Ros.
There's some more answers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Neil, your colleague. Sorry, my fault.
Apologies. We were just looking at the culvert, and then I can go on to the maintenance of the surface water drainage system after that. Neil, you're on mute.
Yeah, there we go. Maintenance of the culverted area in the riparian system. That falls under our other LLFA responsibilities of riparian enforcement.
In terms of maintenance of the surface water drainage network, so we still have the condition on the outline application, which I think it tends to be defined a bit more further then. So normally you tend to see the attenuation basins under a maintenance company, and some of the drainage network itself, say the underground pipes, etc., under the Wessex Water, so section 104. But I don't believe, I'm not up to speed at the moment on exactly the maintenance responsibilities. That generally comes at the discharge condition stage, where we get it all defined as in a maintenance strategy and manual.
Okay, you seem to be finished now. That's for that one. Ros.
Thank you, Chair. Three things I would like to say. First of all, having seen many of these applications in front of me, and this one I know has been a long, long time in the making, I would actually like to commend what we have in front of us. This is a really overall well thought through proposal with a lot of detail. I do commend both Ed and before that Nikki White, who worked really hard at the early days stage in getting the access, safe access for the residents and particularly the pupils to the school within street. There is quite a lot of thoughtful work done on the sides and on the edges. And in comparison, quite frankly, to some of the applications we seen coming to planning, this one I think covers virtually everything we were looking for. And I think we just need to be mindful that there are things inevitably will be totally signed off by officers as and when things move forward. But the fundamentals on this already approved scheme I think are jolly good in comparison to many of the things we see. And so I commend to Ed and to Nikki to actually ensure that Curo have produced a scheme which is, I think, really will meet the needs. I'm incredibly aware of the need for affordable housing in street. And if we have the option, because of the way Homes England fund affordable housing for an additional 11 properties, in addition to the ones which are policy compliant, I really do think we've got to have a very good reason not to allow to go ahead at this stage. And I think it's becoming of us to actually trust the officers who have to date produced a good application to actually ensure that when signing off the various construction details and all the other things related to flooding, that we now move this forward. I'm really concerned about deferring something. If the parish council were concerned, they've had the best part of 6 years to actually get a hydrologist report in place. And I do think that it's a little bit late in the day to defer things. And I'm more than happy to propose that we accept this proposal. And I don't know if anyone's prepared to. I see Edric has indicated he's happy to accept it. So a motion then to the chair at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rose. I notice that Amy is gone now, so we've got no more questions on flooding. No, so Martin. No, you're still there, Amy. Okay.
No, this is I want to ask a question about radon gas, if that's all right. Do I need to ask?
That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
I can give you a lowdown on that as well if you want it.
Well, I'd love to hear it, Mr. Chairman. Your wisdom's always welcome.
No, it's okay. We'll let Ed talk you through this one.
Yeah. Did we get an answer to the question on radon gas? In other words, have we done the tests? And if so, are there mitigating design factors that can be worked in to prevent any kind of contamination?
Ed, up to you.
So it's essentially a building regulations matter. So that's was it Part C of the building regs? So that would be dealt with as part of the building regs sign off rather than now at the planning stage.
To supplement. Sorry. So there are ways of building to ensure that there's no encroachment of radon gas.
I'm not a specialist, but I think you just put a membrane in, something like that, isn't it? That's what I've heard anecdotally. Ty, I don't know, you got anything? No, yeah, I think you just put a membrane in and that stops it seeping up, but that's my
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I surveyed a lot of radon stuff. Mike.
Microphone. I was just going to say that having grown up in Cornwall, radon was a bit of an issue there, and we were all encouraged by the NRPB in those days to have a radon survey. Our house was quite normal. Our next door neighbour's house was off the scale. Anyway, that turned out that it was his rock collection that he kept in the kitchen, and it was giving off all sorts of radiation. But the point I was going to make was that there were some houses in our street where passive venting was proposed, where you have a cavity. I think from memory, radon is a heavier than air gas, and it sinks, and you have a sump in the house, and that's passively vented outside. If it was really bad, then you would, as it was with a friend of ours, then you had active venting where you had the sump, but then a fan to effectively blow the gas out of the house. So there's lots of things you can do to deal with radon. I think, as Ed rightly says, the building regs are pretty fulsome on that point. I'd like to just take my place later on in the discussion, or whenever it's my turn to say something else, but I just thought I'd
absolutely, Mike, no problem. And I will add to that about the Stone Street. It's Blue Lias, and a few years ago now, there was a survey, and all the people who were in houses that were a little bit liable to it, all membranes in, I believe, and I think that worked fine. So, okay, who's next? Helen. I think, yeah, you slightly beat Dawn there.
I did say that I wanted a second bite at the cherry. Thank you. If this is going to go through, I'd like to make sure that it's with the condition, the extra condition in condition number 23, which was about the drainage being in place first, but also the extra condition, which I think is under condition 9, under sustainable construction, that we ask for a minimum of solar panels, but also there's a willingness to put in air source heat pumps, which is great. I don't know if the local, what are they called, the network provider for electricity, I know there's an issue with that in Frome, where you're supposed to be putting an air source heat pump. I don't know if you can, because there's a network provider issue. So I think that there has to be some flexibility on air source heat pumps, but in ideally it would be great if we can have them. And Fabric First and all the rest of it, it just needs to be conditioned quite strongly, because sometimes developers, they've got the intention to do it and then it doesn't actually happen if it's not conditioned. So that's number 9, condition 9, I think. Then also, we could, I'm just wondering if there could be a condition to address what Martin Dimmery and others have just said about the radon, to just ensure that we've got something in there to minimise the effects of radon. I don't know if that's possible to put that in under somewhere. And then I just a more general point, which is about the materials. Somebody said that blue lias is what's normally you find in street, but they didn't like the materials as you come into town. I think it's probably quite difficult to get blue lias. I think that's what's down in Charmouth, isn't it? Where all the fossils are. I think it's quite hard to get the real thing. I don't know if you can or not. I don't know enough about the quarrying industry, but I think it's probably expensive. So whatever they're putting there might be the nearest to it. I don't know if we can change that at this stage. As you say, we've got to look at the application that's in front of us. But I do know that sometimes the materials, the developer sends samples to the officer and then they get signed off. The people from Cura will know that I'm not very happy with the supposedly red tiles in the Cura development in Frome, which actually turned out to be pink. Now, the reason I wasn't happy with it was because it's an edge of town location and it doesn't blend well into the environment if they're pink. So I am just a bit concerned about these. I think it's the same tiles that you're proposing here. And I don't know if that can be separated out from the main application, and that can be something that is agreed with officers later to make sure that those materials do fit in with the local environment so that they blend in, because we don't want a hard urban edge, but so that we blend into the edge of, against the countryside. This may or may not be where street finishes, and this may be the edge of street for years to come. So it would be great if we've got something that looks good. So I don't know if that could be separated out, or if we are going to end up approving all those materials today as well.
Thank you for that, Helen. I will add one thing about the Blue Lion Stone, and you mentioned the Jurassic Coast. Actually, they found a dinosaur in street when they were quarrying, and that is in the Natural History Museum, and I've seen it, so I know it's there. Okay, Ed, do you want to come back on Helen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, so on materials, so the Reserve Matters application has materials conditions proposed for it. So normally it would be signed off by officers as part of any submission of details application. Happy to work with you on that informally, or if you need to, add that that's done in consultation with the chair, we could look at that.
Can I come back, Nick? Yeah, just that I think Nick knows the area well, and so I'm happy for the chair or the local councillors to also be consulted to sign it off. It's not my area, but it just needs materials that are sympathetic to street and the fact that it's an urban edge. That's all. So that was that one. That would be great if they could sign that off. And then the others were the other conditions that I just suggested, with whether we can do something about the radon, the build, so that we address the radon gas. And then the other things about sustainability.
Yep. So on the radon, as I say, it's building regs, so different regime. Planning's not supposed to double up, if you like. but we could add an informative note on the decision so that to draw attention to that issue that it needs to be dealt with. On the sustainability, as I say, yeah, we can certainly add a specific condition in relation to solar PV if that's what members are minded to do. As I say, the general approach to sustainability is controlled through a condition attached to the outline, and a sustainability strategy statement has been submitted as part of this reserved matters application. That does say that solar PV is feasible, so I don't see why we couldn't add that as a condition as I suggested in the presentation. I just wanted to add an extra, hopefully provide a bit of extra comfort as well in terms of the sort of approach to flooding and drainage. It is a very staged approach. You know, there's sort of a level of detail at outline, a bit more level of detail at reserve matters, but the actual post permission scrutiny that goes on is quite an important part of the process in terms of drainage, and that is obviously secured through the conditions. So it's not a sort of part-baked situation. It's quite common for that to be dealt with post permission, much in the same way as, you know, with highways, we get a further level of detail that's dealt with through the Section 38 process and the Section 278 process. So I wouldn't want members to go away with the impression that it was, you know, at all part-baked.
Do we need to vote on my conditions? I don't know, Nick. What do you think? No?
Go for it, Ed.
I think in terms of the conditions, that would need to be part of the proposal. So need to be for the proposer to add any additional conditions to the proposal, and then for the committee to vote on that.
Okay, thanks for that, Ed. I think Dawn's going to come in here. And
I was just going to help in terms of the route to resolution. Effectively, we've all heard the three conditions that were being requested, in particular in terms of drainage, sustainable construction and the materials. The materials are set out in conditions 3 and 2 that's already on the report, but with the added caveat of looping in the chair of the committee and or local members as part of discharge condition. So the recommendation I would suggest would be the same as the previous in terms of it's deferred to officers to come up with the wording of those additional conditions and agree those additional conditions with the chair and vice chair following the committee meeting, if that's what members are minded to go with. So if you have support for the conditions that you're proposing, effectively members vote on that, and they're voting to delegate the authority to officers so that we can draft those conditions and get them signed off through the chair and vice chair.
okay, thank you, Dawn. And now it's the turn of the other Dawn.
Oh, I don't want to be the other one. One of the speakers, Kevin, actually had mentioned about closing that lane earlier. Is there something that we can do about that for safety reasons? Because he felt that it was too late in the process of the construction.
Yeah, Ed.
Unfortunately not. So it's controlled through the Section 106 as agreed at the outline, and the wording of the control is prior to occupation, the developer is to apply for a traffic regulation order to implement that. That's as far as we can go really in terms of actually that wording of applying for as well, because it's a separate regime. So yeah, that's essentially as far as we can go with that. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Can I just ask another question quickly while I'm here?
Yeah.
For the rights of way, it was called, the mention was holding objection. What does that mean, really? Because it said something about future maintenance will be through the S106, but we also know that's a problem with enforcement. So yeah, what does a holding objection mean?
So the existing right of way goes across the field sort of east-west, which is through the SUDS area. The public rights of way team are not fully satisfied with, you know, how exactly that could work, but there are options for how it would be introduced. Again, it's a separate regime. So in order to divert a right of way, there's a statutory process. even if there's one objection, it would go to a public inquiry.
Okay.
So again, it's a bit like with drainage and highways, where that's something that would be dealt with.
And the
at a later
community
date.
will have a say in that. If it
Yeah, I
has
mean,
to
as I
go to
say,
the
even if
public
there's
inquiry.
one objector, that would go to a public inquiry for that to make that diversion order.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Dawn. My next one on the list is Susie.
Thank you. When you put your charts up there, Ed, I think it said 84 affordable houses, and I'm just wondering, is that the most we can have? Because that's not 30% of 280. Yeah.
Ed, do you want to work that out?
Yes, it is. So it is. So 280 total, 30% is the 84.
How? 8, 16, 24.
So 280
Five
times
two.
0.3 is
90
is
something.
84. 280 times
Should be 10 more.
0.3 equals 84. I'm getting.
No, don't do that. 9, 18, 27. That's maths.
84 by 3 is 232.
Oh, okay, I'm doing 33. So that is our max
Yeah,
amount
so
of product.
it's not our
Okay.
max. Actually, it's not our max. Well, okay, so slightly. So the developer in his presentation, the applicant mentioned some additionality of 11 units. So the policy requirement for street is 30%. This is not a rural exception site. This is a standard site. So the most we can secure to meet the planning obligations tests is that 30%. So in terms of your decision, that's all you can really consider. However, developers, especially affordable housing providers such as Curo, will often apply for government grants to get some additionality. So in this case, there is the possibility of 11 extra units that they can apply for. But really, that's not a material consideration because we can't secure it. You know, it's a sort of a nice to have, but not really part of the planning decision.
So we can just hope for the best, basically.
Yeah,
on that
basically.
one. And then also I was looking at the allotments, and I don't know if I got that wrong, but it looked like there were 9 allotments. Is that right?
Yeah, so there are 9 allotments. I mean, they are small. It's a gesture, if you like, rather than, you know, a full on, you know, proper bells and whistles scheme of allotments. But, you know, a lot of schemes don't have any allotments. It's
So,
something, I
yeah,
guess.
I was just wondering if there's any way of negotiating any more, because that seems like a tiny amount. And I know that in Boltonsborough, they did a development with allotments, and I just know that how well appreciated that has turned out and how well used. Yeah, I mean, back to the same old question that Dawn asked. Burley Lane, can we not negotiate with them and just say, please, would you request sooner that it gets closed? Because, like, why would we want to have a kind of risky situation if we don't need to? I know we can't force them, but we can just ask them.
We can certainly ask the question. The control is already there. I guess that could be seen as a backstop, if you like. You know, that's obviously, you know, a backstop is not normal. You know, these processes do take a long time. So I would expect the developer to be making that kind of application to make the traffic regulation order in good time. You know, I see no reason why they would hang around. I can't talk for them though. So all we can make this decision on is the control that we've got in the planning obligation.
Okay, and for the benefit of existing residents, can we know more about the management moving forward of the supposed buffer zone, which I think you said is 90 or 30 metres, 90 foot or something I heard, which is not that massive.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is quite a significant buffer zone. In terms of the management, again, it's controlled through the Section 106. So it's a fairly sort of standard structure. A management company has to control that in the case of this applicant, because they're Curo and they manage their own properties, in all likelihood it would be Curo doing it themselves in-house in this case. It is a fairly significant buffer though. You know, it's not just a couple of trees, there's some orchard planting down there, and that does help to buffer the development from the conservation area that's sort of slightly further up to the northwest. And that was one of the policy requirements in the local plan. That was also considered at outline stage. So that sort of buffer up the western edge is quite an important aspect of the site, and that would be managed.
Right, thank you, Ed. Thank you,
The
Susie.
last thing I just is there's more stuff about the flood situation. So I see it says that in order for the
You missed the boat on the flood. 'Cause-
building to go ahead. No, I don't want to, yeah, I just want to make it as a statement. Like, in order for the building to go ahead, the bill or the planning permission to be initiated, there has to be sustainable urban drainage. I just want us to be like absolutely belt and braces sure that we really do have sustainable urban drainage in place. And I guess it's all the stuff that we've kind of been talking about. I just don't know how we ensure that it's really in place. Yeah, you're able to manage it moving forward.
So
you happy, Ed?
Yeah, take that, Chair. So the SUDS is also double controlled. It's within the 106, but it's also a condition. The condition, actually, the trigger is slightly earlier. So all those sort of large water basins in the kind of top 2/3 of the site, that's where the main attenuation would take place. When the application came in outline stage, it was calculated on a sort of climate change additional 40%. So that basically means bigger capacity for those storage basins. At reserve matters stage, that's now been increased to 45%, so a bit more capacity. So that is all in there as per, you know, and controlled through the section 106 and the condition. So yeah, it's there in answer to your question.
Thanks, Ed. That's very good. Cheers, Susie. Mike, your turn.
Thank you very much, Chair. I note that I think the only reason this is here at committee today is because the parish council objected. But having read their objections, it does appear that all of those things were dealt with at outline stage. So I just wonder, one question, what efforts were made to try and have a discussion with the parish council about the fact that those, certainly in my view, aren't real reasons to object to an application for reserved matters. Councillor Leishan and other members of the public have all raised the traffic regulation issue. And I hear what Ed has said about that, but I think if there is a way of us conditioning the closure of that road before the development takes place, that makes perfect sense. I'm thinking in my own ward of an application or a development where a major new roundabout on a road had to be built as a result of the new development, and it came very late, but it came about 4 years after the development was finished and occupied. But let's put aside that issue. My concern was that vastly more traffic would have been involved in the construction of the site than in the few cars that came in and out of the development once people were living there. And it strikes me that it would make much more sense, generally speaking, where we have new developments, that the new traffic arrangements are put in place, generally speaking, before development begins rather than just before the houses are occupied. So if there is a way of conditioning that, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I listened to what Councillor Wyke said and agree with it, with all of that. I think it is an exemplary application. I just wanted to emphasise, though, that it's not just the affordable housing we need, it's all of the housing. We are in desperate need of housing generally in Somerset, largely as a result of the delays that have been introduced by nutrient neutrality. So I think when we are presented with an application like this, that is, in my view, a high quality submission, we ought to be approving that at the first opportunity. And I've seen nothing here today, having read the report, listened to the debate and listened to the clarifications which our officers have given us, I've seen nothing that would suggest that we ought to be deferring it. So I think Councillor Wyke had a seconder for her proposal in Edric, but I'd be more than happy to back that. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you, Mike. It's true. And your next door neighbour there, Barry, is the next one up.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it was Ros that mentioned that the parish council has 6 years to come up with their objections and their survey, but 2 more months isn't going to make a lot of difference, is it? If that will put their minds at rest, let them have the time to do their survey. You shake your head. In Mendip Central and East, there are 3 areas, all of which have culverts running around them and underneath them, and streams running by, and we've been there with LLFA and talking about riparian rights. That does not clear people's houses of floodwater, because these riparian rights mean nothing when it comes down to every house in a row prepared to do their little bit. The only consolation I can see is that Peter, whose second name I've forgotten yesterday at the briefing, said that Cura, in perpetuity, would look after the hedges and the streams and the water. I'm not sure if perpetuity means the same thing to him as it does to me, but these culverts have got a horrible idea of backing up, and then they end up flooding all over the place. So I'm with Helen's original idea of a deferral. 2 months wouldn't make any difference to anybody, and let the parish council do their work. If they've not done it by 2 months, then we can vote it through.
Okay, Barry, thanks for your opinion. I will tell you one thing before you go further. There is a house not very far away from this proposed site where the foundation of the house is built over a culvert. And I know this because I surveyed that area many years ago. And that's never flooded, probably damp, but never flooded. Okay, the next person is Ros.
Chair, I was going to say, don't forget my motion. It's on the table. I had a seconder and I would like to move this forward now.
I'm with you, Ros. I've got,
Susie and Helen.
I'll take 2 quick questions, one from Susie and then one from Helen afterwards, and that's it. Okay,
So this
Susie.
is very quick and it might be very thick as well. Is there any way of us voting on it now, giving the go ahead with a caveat that says when the parish council do their research, it comes out saying something dramatically different, that puts a pause on it whilst that whole thing is bottomed out? Or would that happen in any case through the back mechanisms that you have for ensuring that the flood risk is dealt with? Thank you.
Dawn?
Yeah, so if the decision of the committee was to resolve to grant subject to the conditions as previously discussed, it will take us a little bit of time to negotiate those conditions, and then we will look to get the decision out as soon as possible, because we do need to be delivering planning permissions. So that means, in all likelihood, if it had resolution to grant a committee, that would be ahead of a 2 month time frame that the parish council are gearing up to. Notwithstanding that, the information the parish council are sourcing is the same information we already have on the application that's already been reviewed by the LFA and is already considered to be acceptable by the specialist who looks particularly at drainage. So whilst we've got the detail we've got at this level, if there's then an issue with later data that's coming through in terms of how they actually construct it, that's part of ongoing negotiations between the developers and the LFA to secure a scheme that actually works, and we sign that off against the condition. So I think the concern that's being raised would be addressed through the conditions and through the 106, but it wouldn't pause the issue of the decision for the parish council.
So basically you're saying trust the process.
I'm saying trust the specialists that have done all the reports and are qualified in those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Susie. Okay, Helen, you're having the last say.
Yeah. Okay.
And too long, please.
No, thank you. Barry, I appreciate your support, but actually I have been reassured by what I've heard today, and I'm probably going to vote for this. But thank you. On the basis also of what Susie's just said, that everything is going to feed into making sure we have a really watertight drainage scheme. I have looked at some detail at it. So my last point was actually going to be that about the gentleman that said that the boundary treatment had not been very good around his house. I can't remember who it was, and whether or not we can also add an extra condition, or we can have an expectation that the developers will work with the resident that brought up that issue to make sure that the boundary treatment was satisfactory or better than it currently is. Because there was a resident that brought it up in the northwestern corner, I think he said he was. That's all.
Okay, Ed, I think that's one for you.
Yeah, so the property in question we looked at live. There is quite a significant distance between the existing property and the site. The site has been looked at in terms of intrusion and overlooking, and it's in excess of, standard minima, basically.
Is it about having trees or something? Because there's supposed to be like a line of trees along the north, which I think would also help with drainage, but it's going to also help with noise and with visual impact and everything else, isn't it? That line of trees.
We can certainly have a conversation in terms, if it's a question of how the landscaping there could be designed. I don't think it's a question of we couldn't rejig the layout or anything like that. The separation distances are there. There is landscaping that's proposed in that buffer as well. So, yeah.
Could that be minuted, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I can't bring you back in. Right, so we are going to go to the vote on Roz's proposal, and Edric seconding to go to officer recommendation and approve. And with other bits, Ros,
with all the
Just
conditions.
to add to it, we need to have the various additional conditions which we're leaving to the officers to word, but I think do you want to list them, Dawn, so we have total clarity?
Thank you. So just for certainty, the recommendation would be to delegate to officers to draft additional conditions in terms of drainage, sustainable construction, and an informative about radon gases. There was also a point in terms of conditions 2 and 3 in terms of approval of materials through the chair or the relative area committee members. So we would be working on that as officers to draft them and then sharing them with the chair and vice chair for sign off.
Right, thank you very much. Everybody happy with that? Yeah. Oh, Barry, you're not happy. Okay.
Well, I am. I'm relatively happy. Where does that leave the 2-month period for the parish council to come back?
Yes. I think, Barry, if I may, Chair, I said it and I think it was being reinforced. If any information comes back which is contrary to the survey which has already been done, then we leave it to the officers to have a look at it and consider that. I don't think at this stage, but I think it's legitimate to actually condition it. We need to get on. And I'm sorry, the 11 additional houses due to the nonsense of Homes England funding, we also must also take into account, and I hope that, and I'm sure that Curo will deliver that. The people of Street need affordable housing, and particularly social housing. Thank you.
Totally agree with you, Ros. Okay. All those in favour of Ros's thing to go with officers? Okay. That's 1, 2. Who's counting? Right, 10. All those against? And those abstaining? 1. Okay, so that's carried. It's approved. Thank you. And I'll inform the chairman of Street Parish Council that he should have been a bit quicker.
Don't get yet, folks. There's some appeals on the bottom of the
Oh, yeah,
agenda.
there are some appeals. Yeah, who's going to do the appeals today? Tom? Are you doing them? I'll give you a moment. Okay.
Three dismissed and a couple of three dismissed and two allowed.
How are we doing, Tom? We getting there? We want to get the meeting closed and.
Yeah.
Joe, do you want me to get those?
Are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we there?
Appeals, yeah. So I'll just whiz through these quickly. So Appeal 1, land west of Fortescue Fields, Norton St Philip. Appeal dismissed. I think members will be familiar with that one. Appeal 2, land at Lanes End Hill, Rodden. This was just a PIP, a small one right on the edge of the district for 3 dwellings. That was also dismissed. So sorry, I should have said as well, the first one was the decision, it was a non-determination. The second one was refusal. Appeal 3, Bluestone Cottage, Lottersham Lane, Glastonbury. That was also a refusal. Appeal was also dismissed. Appeal 4, land east of Station Road, Wanstrow. This was also a refusal, delegated. That one, the appeal was actually allowed. And finally, Appeal 5, Manor Farm Worth in Wookey, a non-determination appeal. That one was allowed. I don't know if anyone wants any more detail on those or go home.
Anybody? Any questions? Oh, Ros.
Sorry, Nick. I am concerned about the last one. I will be parochial here as it's in my patch. And I just wondered if we have some background on a non-determination. I mean, this is quite a sensitive one within the community, and I find that quite difficult why we didn't determine it. Are there any lessons to be learnt on this one?
Ed, Tom, whichever one of you.
I don't have anything yet. Sorry, I don't have any more detail about that. I wasn't the case officer on that one. Could certainly come back to you offline and provide a bit more detail if that would help.
Thank you. That would be really helpful because I know I will have a third degree at the parish council on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
I certainly understand that. Okay then, so I can declare the meeting closed and we can all go home. So that's good. Right. Yes.